What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. Well, yesterday we had another one of those gaming handheld cloud devices announced. This one, though, is a bit different from that Logitech G Cloud and seemed like it's going to be quite a bit more expensive. We'll go over that here today. Also, we are going to be talking about a pretty big controversy that's now hit a big release for next week in Overwatch 2, and we'll also be talking about a leak that's hit Sony once again for a title that's heading to PC from their PlayStation studios. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button, helps out a ton, and if you're new here to the SpawnWave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And we're going to start today with Skull and Bones, which we were so close to this game coming out. A couple more months and we might not have to hear much about this title, but instead they've decided to delay it for a fifth time. Yeah, take a look at this over on Twitter. This from their official Skull and Bones account, where they say, "We have decided to push our initial launch date to March 9th, 2023. They're citing feedback they received during various technical tests and insider programs. Now, obviously, it was not in a good spot to release a day before God of War and right there alongside of Sonic Frontiers. Whatever you think of Sonic, having Sonic and then God of War basically surrounding Skull and Bones, it wasn't going to be a good spot for it to release to any kind of interest. I don't really know what they do to this game over the course of 3 or 4 months with this delay in place that will make the game interesting. I just think its core concept is something that people are kind of looking at and going, I don't know if that's for me, and they're kind of walking right by it. So at this point, I think Ubisoft just needs to get this game out there and move along. But based on some of the reports with the amount of money that's being invested here and some of the investing parties that are tied up, seems like they at least want to try to make it a decent experience overall that can get some sort of audience invested. Also, we did have the PlayStation Plus Essentials lineup announced for the month of October. We can see this over on PlayStation blog. Let's see, we have Hot Wheels Unleashed. That's the PS5 and PS4 title for the month. Injustice 2 on the PS4, and then Super Hot on the PS4. Unfortunately, it's not Super Hot VR, which was a separate release. And I say that because then you could claim it here and potentially get a free upgrade. But maybe we'll see if that's one of the titles that's unveiled to get that for PlayStation VR 2. Hot Wheels Unleashed is a fun game. So that's not a bad addition, just not a massive month, I would say, overall for PlayStation Plus Essentials. These will be claimable on October 4th, so make sure you claim September's releases as they are still up now. But if anything, looking at these, yeah, Hot Wheels is worth checking out. And Super Hot, just for the concept itself, if you have never played it, I think it's cool to at least download and try for yourself. It's kind of like this first-person shooter where time only moves when you do, so there's some cool bullet trails that go by you and different things there. But there we have it, the PlayStation Plus Essential lineup for the month of October. Oh, and we have been hearing about this PlayStation Stars, our customer loyalty program with Sony, and now it appears in the next couple of days it will be launching. And this was posted up over on PlayStation Blog Japan. We have a couple of different times in Asia, including Japan. Thursday, September 29th, so today, this will be out. North and South America, it'll be launching Wednesday, October 5th, and then Europe and Australia will launch Thursday, October 13th. They did talk about, I guess, the theme for this first campaign. It's Listen 1994. They say participants who launch the correct game based on hints related to the song will be able to win special collectibles. That's kind of fun, right? And they say that there is a case that you can display and make it public so that other people can see your collectibles there. But I guess we'll find out more here really anytime now as it's launching in Japan, and we'll see exactly what kind of collectibles you get and I guess some of the hints and clues and different things that they put out there. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with this new gaming handheld that was officially announced for consumers yesterday. Prior to this, in December, it was shown off, but it was really only being positioned for developers. But now we can see this over on Verizon's site, where they had a press release outlining several different products and services they were bringing to market, and this was in there. That being the Razer Edge 5G. This is a collaboration between Verizon, Qualcomm, and Razer. It's being positioned as the first 5G gaming handheld. It's built on the Snapdragon G3X Gen 1 gaming platform, and it's specifically designed for high-performance gaming on the move. I mean, essentially it's still an Android handheld, which you can then picture the kind of games you'd be playing from the Play Store, but it is being tied with the 5G ultra wideband, this being an even faster, 5G connection from Verizon. I've seen talk about it being up over a gigabit connection, so that's pretty good for the most part, especially if you would use it for, say, cloud gaming on the go. My only issue with this, all right, is we talk about these speeds for mobile devices with carriers like Verizon, T-Mobile, AT&T, and so on. But the data caps are a big problem still. Sure, they say unlimited connections, but there's usually some sort of like threshold you hit, and then all of a sudden they knock you down to like less than 3G, something basically you wouldn't be using for doing any kind of cloud gaming. However, it is important to note that this will be playing games locally alongside of cloud streaming, and that's why, to me, it's a bit different than what we've seen with that Logitech G Cloud handheld, in that this will have a high-end chip that will provide 144 FPS support, 4K HDR, and HDMI output capabilities. So looking at this, you will be able to play those games on the Play Store at, I guess we say, high settings and higher frame rates, all these different things. And it might not seem like a big deal now because we picture what mobile games look like. And I'm sure a lot of people picture things like Candy Crush and that. But we have to remember, there is a big push currently in the background for like larger developers and publishers like Sony and PlayStation moving into the world of mobile games. I'm still kind of picturing gacha games from Sony, but it is possible that they'd try a God of War game. Rather than developing it for a Vita successor, they develop it for cell phones and in turn this Razer Edge 5G, which would be a much more comfortable experience considering it has physical controls with buttons, joysticks, D-pad, all these different things. So that to me would make this a more relevant device because I think it's going to cost in the neighborhood of $800 to $1,000. No way with the stuff they're talking about here that it would be, I think, anywhere close to that Logitech G Cloud. This is something that will be geared towards the high-end consumer who is willing to spend that kind of money on what, I mean, is basically a higher-end tablet with controls attached to the side of it. But we will find out more around this Razer Edge 5G on October 15th when they hold an event with Razer there. Next up, let's talk about a game from Sony that it just keeps leaking out that it's going to PC. We already know that PlayStation is making a big push to bring a lot of games that were originally tied to their console to the PC platform, and the latest one seems to be Returnal. And this has been on Steam database for a while after people figured out the code name for it, and they've been following updates to it ever since. But now we're just getting footage of this game leaking out. And the biggest thing around Returnal or any of these PC ports from Sony come down to the features that'll be available in the settings menu, which is what was shown off. And this just appeared on a forum randomly. So I'm kind of wondering if we are getting close to that Returnal PC reveal, which we'll talk about a bit more here. But first, let's go over what was in the footage. I can't necessarily show it to you because I have a feeling Sony's going to start pulling some of this down. It looks pretty legit, but some of the biggest things do include DLSS support, which, I mean, it looks like they have quite a bit of options here in the graphics customization menu, but DLSS was front and center at the top. They also talk about ray tracing for shadows, reflections, and it goes on and on and on with the settings menu. So if you're a big fan of being able to customize the look and performance of the game, you're going to have a pretty good and expansive time going through all of this. And then obviously you can heavily push the frames per second as it just goes up to, as they say, infinity. And I do think Returnal is a game that will do well on Steam specifically. I could see that in like the top 5 when it launches, no sweat there. But with this, when is Sony going to announce this going to PC? Because it seems like it's getting pretty close. I have a feeling they're going to try to launch this in first quarter of 2023 to work out the rest of their fiscal year, as they are looking for quite a bit of revenue on the PC side. You figure you pair up Returnal with Sackboy, yes, but also The Last of Us Part 1. Remember, that's The Last of Us debuting on the PC. I think that would get them to the hundreds of millions of dollars they are still looking to make on the PC side, which leads me to, if there would be a PlayStation event where these would kind of just get announced as they go along some of the big PS5 reveals. We've seen this before where they announced that Uncharted Legacy of Thieves Collection would be going to PC. That was a big reveal there. So I'm kind of thinking they may have an event in October. Could be a PlayStation showcase where they go over some of their plans for 2023 and beyond, specifically from a first-party standpoint. And yeah, Returnal and Sackboy are in there for the PC side. I'm curious if they would show up with a release date for Last of Us Part 1 as well, since it is already out on the PlayStation 5. But there you have it. Looks like Returnal could be getting announced at any time because now it's just leaking online with footage of the settings. Next up, let's talk about Overwatch 2. It's coming out next week, and this has been a highly anticipated sequel, I guess. It's very odd the way that this is happening with Activision Blizzard, where they're almost unsure if they want to do a sequel for this. At least that's how it's felt ever since they made that announcement. It's kind of like these blurred lines between the two games. But either way, they went over several details around Overwatch 2 when it comes to mostly your account. For example, it appears you will need a phone number attached to your Battle.net account just to launch Overwatch 2, which has been off-putting to many people. According to Blizzard on the website for Overwatch 2, with some of the Q&A they did, this is to prevent, for the most part, people from making account after account after account if they're getting banned for, say, cheating or toxic behavior in the game itself. And I mean, that at least it makes sense what they're going with. It just seems like a very strict policy that you can't even use the prepaid numbers or VoIP or anything there. You have to use like a legit phone number that I guess you've had for a while, or at least looks like something that isn't just picked up out of nowhere to try to open a bunch of accounts. And while the phone number thing has been talked about quite a bit now, the thing that seems to be pretty controversial is the first time user experience that's been introduced for Overwatch 2. We can see this over on the website where they say, we want FTU, first time user experience, to welcome players more gradually to Overwatch 2, as we've seen consistent feedback from new players feeling overwhelmed by numerous game modes and heroes. New players begin with access to a limited set of game modes, heroes, and some other restrictions to onboard them more gradually. The first phase of our new 2 rapidly unlocks all the game modes and the ability to chat in-game, and the second phase unlocks all the original Overwatch heroes. Over the course of approximately 100 matches, this focused experience eases new players into the world of Overwatch by teaching them about different modes, rules, and other high-level aspects of the game in an approachable way. So basically, yes, you will be grinding for 100 matches in order to unlock, well, many of the heroes that were available in the first Overwatch, and then I guess some of the new ones that they added in here. Now, there are two ways you can look at this. One, if you are a new player, I guess they could try to funnel you towards maybe heroes that are easier to use and not just put you in a menu with a bunch of stuff going on, but also they are technically limiting options for you to kind of absorb on your own over time. The thing here though, and I don't know if this kind of went under the radar, is if you are grouped up with people and you seem to be kind of moving along like you know what you're doing, you don't have any of these restrictions. So if you are in a group and everyone's like, I'm going to pick this hero that's not unlocked until 75 matches in, that won't be the case for you. You can just use them and also jump into these different modes along with your friends. So I'm curious the way people would be looking at this one, because if you do the math, seems like every 3 or 4 matches, you'll be unlocking a new hero to use. And I guess that way you can get introduced to them slowly over time. But if you want to play with your friends, you don't have any of that restriction at all. So I'm looking at this like, what do you expect out of a free-to-play game? That's kind of how they go with this. And that's what I've said. It seems like free-to-play, while it's very enticing to these publishers and developers, it does kind of muddy up the waters around how they want to approach this when they're assuming a bunch of people who are just kind of jumping in to try it out would feel with a big menu and all of these heroes, because they want that engagement. That is number one priority. Not even to sell you the game, just to keep you invested in it. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about a new game that was announced yesterday that actually surprised me a bit because it looks really good, and it's from EA. Well, kind of. It's from EA Originals, which is mostly EA publishing and investing in developers in order to make what they have here as Wild Hearts. It's from Omega Force, and they have mostly been known as the developers behind the Warriors series of games, but now it looks like they're going with a Monster Hunter-esque release. Yeah, take a look at some of the trailer here. This is coming out February 17th, 2023 for the PS5, Xbox Series, and PC. And the trailer really, yes, looks like Monster Hunter because you are, of course, going after very, very large creatures. It appears you and two other friends can kind of hunt them down, get, I'm sure, different materials from them, and craft stuff, which seems to be one of the big focuses in this game, but not necessarily just to craft stuff for your armor and your weapons. While that does appear to be part of it, they're talking about just inventions. They had some pretty cool looking ones there. For example, they had like harpoons they were shooting against some of the large creatures that were holding them down. They had like these large catapults, a big hammer that would swing and hit them. So it does seem like there's going to be a lot to collect and then create in the game itself. I'm curious about some of the controls with the game because that's one thing that always throws me off about Monster Hunter. It kind of slows you down at times, and yes, you have to be very thoughtful with your movements, whereas if this is Omega Force and they're all about like Dynasty Warriors where you're just swinging wildly, will they allow you a bit more freedom with movement and some of the attacks over what you would do with Monster Hunter? But hey, a pleasant surprise for this one. I'm excited to check this out to kind of kick off 2023. And before we go to the comment of the day, we're gonna take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I asked, are you checking out Overwatch 2 next weekend? 82% said no, 18% said yes. I think I am gonna check it out, but I mean, it's free to play, so why not? I'm just not a big hero shooter person. Like I get that it is a very popular genre for like the arena shooter where you have all these different heroes you pick from. And I would say Blizzard did a very good job giving each hero a different personality, some more popular than others. And I recognize just the overall impact of the space that Overwatch has had, but just the Overwatch 2 reveal and now upcoming release just has always felt off to me. And it just doesn't seem like they even wanted to make it in the first place. I don't know, it seems very weird, but I can understand why people are kind of frustrated with some of the stuff they're seeing here with Overwatch 2, but it's coming out next week. Like I said, it's free to play, so might check it out for a night or something, but I don't know if I'm gonna get heavily invested in the game as they want people to do to get those engagement numbers up. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day as you're seeing here. This is from Joe saying, I have a lot of fond memories with Ninja Gaiden 2. It was the first game I got on my Xbox 360 and I'm currently going through the whole trilogy for the first time. With the remasters that came out last year, I'd love to see what direction they go in with a new one. There was another game back then that I enjoyed. I'm not going to say it was like an incredible game. I don't think it was better than Ninja Gaiden at that time, especially Ninja Gaiden 2, but I'm talking about Ninja Blade. Yeah, it's similar to Ninja Gaiden, still kind of that arcadey, fast-paced action game, but the problem they ran into is there were so many QuickTime events that would break up the action, and it was very over the top. Like Ninja Gaiden kind of already over the top, but this is like way out there. It was FromSoft who made it, and I had a good time with it back then. Didn't get the best reviews or anything, it's still fun. The only problem now is it's kind of hard to get. Like, I didn't even realize this, but it's not backwards compatible for the Xbox One or Xbox Series, and it was delisted on Steam earlier this year, so in order to play it, you either have to break out the Xbox 360 and hopefully have your disc still laying around, or I guess have a digital purchase of it, or you go, I guess, on some other third-party websites and buy a global key for Steam. I don't even know if that'll activate. So that is one game, might be worth tracking down physically for the Xbox 360, just in case it becomes one of those rare pieces for the collection 10 years down the road. And ladies and gentlemen, that's gonna do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below, but everything we talked about here today was the Razer Edge 5G. Are you interested in a high-end Android device from Razer, and how much do you think it's going to cost? And also the controversy around Overwatch 2, whether it's the 2 system or having to use your phone number with the account. And then what did you think of Wild Hearts from Omega Force and EA? Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.